Alright, so picking up where we left off from, what I'm doing is I'm putting in some more cross support for the top of the workbench. And then after I put these in, I'm checking for level and attaching them. Here, now I am cutting some 2x4s that start making the base of the cabinet and the workbench for the right side. Now that I have all the frames laid out the way that I want them, I'm just going to start screwing them together. Now that I have the base of the cabinet made up, I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill and attach the legs. Now I'm attaching the leg of the workbench to the top of the frame of the workbench. Also, I'm going to be mounting a 2x4 across the back wall as well to tie into. I'm going to be putting plywood down on the base of the cabinet, and in order to go ahead and reinforce it a little bit more, I'm going to be putting some 2x4s in between. Here what I'm doing is I'm taking the old plywood from the old workbench and I'm ripping it down to go down as the base on the cabinets that I'm making in the garage. I don't have a track saw or anything, so I just used a yardstick and screwed it down as a guide and just ran the circular saw right next to it. It worked actually pretty good. Now that I've gotten the plywood cut down to the correct sizes, I'm just using my jigsaw and I'm cutting out to go around the legs of the workbench. Now that I have the flooring down on the workbench, I can start framing out the end of it. To do this, I'm taking my 2x4, setting it on the ground, and then I'm going to mark off what I need to cut off to make sure that it will be level with the upper part of the framing. Now I can go on ahead and start attaching the plywood to the base of the workbench, and then I can attach the leg to the end. Now that I have the leg attached, I can go on ahead and measure the distance to the wall and the leg and cut it out and attach it. Now that it's attached, I'm just checking to make sure that it's level and flat. Now with the end attached, I can measure and attach the cross piece in the front. In order to make sure that this 2x4 was level, I went ahead and used some clamps to clamp underneath of it to hold one end, while I went to the other end and clamped it as well, and then made sure it was level before I attached it. Here I'm just measuring for a support that I'm going to be putting in the middle of it to give it a little more strength. So what I'm doing here is I'm measuring this area because this is where I'm going to be putting my kegerator underneath the counter of my workbench. And what I was realizing was, while I had the width okay, the height of it was a little bit too tall to fit in between this 2x4. So I decided to go on ahead and cut out the 2x4 right at the in between the two legs and turn it so I had a couple more inches to get the kegerator in underneath the workbench. Now that I have the workbench framed out, what I'm doing is I'm working on my miter saw area. Now I wanted to try and keep as much room in the garage as possible without having too deep of a workbench. So what I'm doing is I'm setting the miter saw on top of my tool chest, and I'm mounting it to these heavy-duty drawer slides to see how it would work out. It's definitely a lot better than I used to do it before. I didn't even have any room for it, and I had to hang the thing halfway off the table to try and even use it, or set it on the ground to use it. So we'll see how this works out and see if we need to change it in the future, but so far it's actually been working pretty easy. Just a minute ago, when I was sliding the miter saw forwards and backwards, it was lifting up in the back. So what I did is I did put a couple holes through the back of the plywood as well as into the top of my tool chest, and mounted the wood directly to it. That way it wouldn't move around on me when I go to slide it out. In order to mount the miter saw, I just used whatever hardware I had laying around the garage initially. Since then I have upgraded it to some better hardware, and it's working pretty good. It's working about how I wanted it to, no issues or anything like that. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section, please. If you have any ideas on how I can improve upon this, definitely be open to hearing them. And also, thank you very much for watching this video. This is the end of part 2 of the Workbench series builds. And if you haven't already, please give this a thumbs up and like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.